Welcome to Homeschooling for Spirituality. The Flow is a delightful mix of insight, divine inspiration, and humor, where wisdom meets earthiness to help your ongoing spiritual growth and transformation. Follow the flow of enlightenment and explore everything spiritual through the deepest self-inquiry, as student Lisa Berry asks Master Spiritual Teacher G.P. Walsh the kinds of questions you would ask an elder, a wise man, or a sage, and receive direct, simple, comprehensive, and deeply human lessons and teachings. From transcending the experience of separation, releasing old conditioned patterns and wounds, and alleviating suffering, to demystifying esoteric practices and revealing one's true purpose and innate freedom. Welcome to the flow of enlightenment. Transformation is all there is.
Wonderful. Welcome, everybody, to the Flow of Enlightenment. Hello, GP.
Hello, Lisa.
I want to be very organized. Yeah, that's my word. I want to be very organized in the setup of today's show, because I can honestly say that this has not been a topic that I would ever be excited or really forward about talking about, because I had different judgments around this. So first of all, hopefully that interests everybody, piques their curiosity right now about what this is. But GP, you and I decided that as we come up to March 8th is International Women's Day, we thought, why don't we celebrate and honor the feminine, the power of the feminine, not, just women, but the power of feminine for the whole month. So this is an interesting thing on equality and an aspect, and I really appreciate that versus, women. And
women,
if I may, you found this beautiful quote that I love, that it really kicks to, wow, did this ever open up a lot of questions from myself and then the people around me. But you found this quote by Joseph Campbell. It says, "Women are life and men are the protectors of life." Well, there's my statement. You rocked my world with that one again, because one thing I always like to have, and this is the perfect time to have so many questions for you this next hour, GP, and anybody who'd like to call in, and I will leave the number in just a moment, is we must really understand that there's what is life? What is the role of the feminine aspect to life, and what happens when it's rocked and when it's not protected? And yes, that's what it is, when it's not protected, and what happens. So I'll share the number with anybody. If you've got any questions throughout this whole show, please call in. The number is 202-507-7057, and that's the OMTimes radio station you're calling in. So let me kick this off with you right away, GP. Question one. Women are life and men are protectors of life. When that statement's being made, women are life, where's that feminine aspect coming in? Why are we life and men aren't?
Well, this is a very ancient view, before it got distorted by culture. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, with the arising of agriculture and more increasingly sophisticated cultures, and also increasingly specialized and organized cultures, they started to tend towards the masculine form of organization, and the traditional role and honor that women had got lost. They became defined culturally as basically secondary. For a long time we didn't really know where babies came from. It was just kind of this magic thing that happened, right? It took us a while to make the connection between sex and babies. And when that connection finally got made, men literally thought that they were implanting little people inside the woman. So oh no, they had armor and swords and stuff. I mean, they were just their own image. That that then the woman became basically the ground, and that they were planting their seed, and that whole thing.
Yes.
But, prior to that, it was just this amazing recognition of that the continuity of life, which all of life and has since the beginning depends on, is the feminine, is woman. Not only does life issue forth, that starts as her body and issues forth from her body, but that life is nourished by her body. And human life, it's years. I mean, we're not like horses that they jump up and run around in a couple hours.
Right.
We don't jump up for a year.
Yes.
And even then, we fall over most of the time. We're completely incapable of surviving. Really, almost up until puberty. And these days, of course, cultures become so sophisticated and complex that even beyond, 30 years old, you're still living in your parents' basement. Mm-hmm. And so this dependency, and for the child, what was there? Mother was everything. I mean, there was mom and her hairy helper, right?
Yes. Well, right when you said that, actually, I find that so interesting. Now, we won't need to go into all the laws and court cases and stuff, but there certainly are. This is why I love that we're celebrating, honoring feminine and goddess power, because it doesn't mean just a woman possesses this all the time, because there are men who actually, get custody of their children because maybe at that time their feminine aspects are coming more forward.
Or the court is biased.
Oh, yes. So, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Let's not rule that out. Right?
Yes. Let's not. Yes. But is it true? Not true. Yes, I guess, because we are looking for the truth. We're self-inquiring. Does both genders possess that feminine and masculine quality?
Well, again, we have to look at it from the point of view of nature and then the point of view of culture.
Ah, yes.
Right. If you're looking at nature, it used to be that nature, the environment, and just the actual different functions of the genders, it was just the way it was. Men were meant to do certain things. Women were meant to do certain things. We have different physical structure, different emotional structure that was in accordance with the particular sharing of responsibility that we had, which was obviously a good system because it worked, right?
Yes.
I mean, we survived. We've become the most populous critter on the planet. So obviously, that division of labor and the fact that we were perfectly suited for it was highly successful. Well, it gets distorted when nature, little by little, is subordinated and taken over by the role of culture. Mm-hmm. And culture serves its interest. Nature serves its interest, but culture replaces that and serves its own interest. It makes its own gods. They're no longer gods of nature. They're gods of the culture. We're no longer worshiping the earth and the sky and the sun and the like. We're worshiping abstractions. We're worshiping the God who is the enforcer of the cultural rules. We're worshiping. We get completely different ideals as to what is important, because the culture has replaced nature as the guiding principle of our lives. But the nature, our actual nature, isn't so easily thwarted, right? I mean, culture is only 12,000 years old. Right, that is, our sophisticated, complex culture. I mean, there was obviously culture. I mean, the hunter-gatherers had culture and the like. But it was a culture that was grew directly out of nature. And so the feminine was celebrated. There were matriarchal societies. The very first idols of worship, or at least of veneration, were women. They were goddesses. They were the very first. Gods came later.
Yes. I remember being in my 20s.
With men, of course.
Yeah. I remember reading something that, the paper was being, way before you just wrote things out, and not just on electronic devices, and that came through, and I thought, wow, this paper, how did this even get in front of me? And wow, there's this I think actually my father gave it to me, and about, the women being there. I love that you said there when you said, you made me think of Father Time, Mother Nature, how we have, and then I am thinking, and I'm being reminded of cultures that really still hold that in their culture. They are still following that. And when I think of those women who maybe they're quilting and sewing or cooking or doing something that we'll call it a woman's role, quote unquote, but it's honored. We love that, and it feels comfortable. And yet you throw it into other cultures and you think, what, you think just because I'm a woman I have to do this? And this ego sneaks in. And
yes.
Which part of our, I'll call it chakra, because we did that, aspects of consciousness, which chakra is that one getting in the way when we fight it or just join culture?
Well, the chakras you can think of as just the natural flow of the various aspects of us, and they take expression in the different structures of the body. The feminine tend in a certain direction, the masculine tend in a certain direction. There's nothing cut and dry about it, right? But when we say traditionally women's roles, I mean, that's demeaning from our cultural point of view, because our cultural idea is financial success, right? It's status, and therefore, and because that was defined by men, and for the most part, for up to like 50 years ago, men, it was the exclusive territory of men. That became a men's job, and of course, if you look at it, it's not. The women and men do it equally well. Matter of fact, I worked in a lot of corporations as a consultant for many years. And I found the way the women naturally organized, if they didn't have a hierarchy imposed on them, they were better managers than men. Because men rule by enforcement, women rule by cooperation. And it was a very different kind of thing. And this goes back to our nature. If you look at hunter-gatherer tribes, women, the job of the women was generational, right? There'd be 5 generations of people there, whereas the men was very much of this moment. So the natural tendency of the women is community, perpetuity, and legacy. The natural tendency of men is do it right now, which the whole thing of protect, deal with the moment as it comes. Hierarchical, do your job, because if you don't, we're going to get eaten. We're not going to be having dinner. And so these are very natural. And the village, which was the realm of women, that was the center of manufacture. They made the rugs, they made the blankets, they made the pottery, they made the
colorful weaves.
Yeah. Men didn't. Men made they made their spears, they made the stuff that they needed to do. But the stuff the everyday stuff of life that we all need, it came from women. And so really, when we look at the nature of things. When I look at that, I go, you know what? The world needs that now. It doesn't need... men have done their job. We've actually dominated nature. There's absolutely no reason right now with what we've accomplished in terms of technology and all of that, where every man, woman, child, and critter on the planet can be taken care of and provided. Everything needed. But that jungle need to hoard, to gather, to take, that has gotten made insane and becomes greed, is still dominating. So all of the scarcity is imaginary. It's artificial. It's man-made. We've done our job. Men have to stop conquering and just let women run the show the way they always have.
Yeah, it's actually quite beautiful the way you say that. You always make me feel like I get let off the hook. I like it. And because of that, yes, this falsity that I need to get more, have more, be more, like financially and stuff and hoarding. And if I just go, oh, good, we're just back to nice, good old fashioned preparing and coming together and enjoying and
yes.
It makes me feel good. It makes me feel like, oh, good. I don't have to do all those millions of jobs that I just made up and everybody else made up, and they're not really real anymore. And you said about 5 generations, it made me reminded me of that question. I thought, what about in the culture today of men who are raised by women only, women, and their mom and my grandmother raised me, or my sisters raised me, or like just a lot of women? Do they have any advantage, or are they better off, or by having that, or are they still?
Well, it really is. What I found in the relationships, like the relationships where 2 women are married and they have a child, that in every relationship, whether it be straight or gay, that there tends to be one person who tends more towards this feminine and one tends more towards the masculine. And the fact that it appears in bodies that are same is really irrelevant, right? It's really the energy. There's a tendency for most women to be of a certain kind and most men, but there's no necessity of it. Native Americans recognized 4 different genders. They recognized all the different genders, as this is natural, this is what happens. Because it is. This is what happens. And we're humans, I think there's like 500 different species, all mammals, that I think all mammals, that demonstrate what we would call homosexual behavior.
Oh.
Yeah, it's perfectly natural. It occurs in nature all the time. For whatever reason, who knows? It doesn't matter. And so when that kind of thing takes place, if there are, if you're a female couple that has a male child, and I actually know some, right?
Yeah.
If you can find high quality men for them to be exposed to and have a relationship with, that's great. They need that. They absolutely do need that. But I would rather have them just have the company of women if their only alternative was some hypermasculine nutcase.
Right. Right.
No, they're way better off, right? It's got to be somebody who actually exudes the mature masculine, and there's precious few running around.
Like that, it is a maturity level. Now, when you mentioned there, we're coming up to our commercial break. But if we could just squeeze in here, when you said about a high quality masculine, when we're talking about these beautiful aspects of the feminine, what are some of those high qualities that do represent the goddess, like that the goddess represents? Sorry, what are those high qualities of nurturing? Well,
a goddess is a metaphor. It's mythological. In every individual, all the gods and goddesses live. You are the goddess. It's that simple. You want to know what the goddess is? Look in the mirror. You and every woman listening is a manifestation of the essential goddess, which is the feminine principle operating in the universe. And in this instance, your body happens to be reflecting that more than mine does. But these are not qualities that belong exclusively to some body or other. Some bodies just express them more naturally than others. I expressed music more naturally than I did accounting. Right.
Right. Yes.
Right. So, does that mean that I couldn't, or there was something inherently wrong with accounting? No, it's just not. That's not a direction I went in. That was natural for this particular form in this particular moment. The quality of the goddess is simply that the feminine aspect of the mystery. Creation happens because the essential oneness, which is undifferentiated and undiscernible, split itself into two, and that two is the masculine and the feminine. And that's the story in all the myths about where that's the first split. The mystery, which is the unified oneness, which is neither this nor that nor both nor neither, it isn't masculine. You can't. It's beyond all categories. In order for there to be creation, it must split. It's kind of a spiritual Big Bang.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Oh, what a great way to go to commercial with. All right. So we shall return and discuss the feminine mysteries. I love that. Thanks, GP.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me the Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
Touch, move, and inspire. Sharing your story of how you overcame your deepest struggle will serve as someone else's survival guide. You are ready to get the book out of your head and onto the page. I'm Jocelyn Bellows, host of Breakdown to Wake Up, a live stream show dedicated to sharing personal journeys of men and women who have traversed through mazes of uncertainty, dark clouds, and dishonoring themselves, and the lessons they have learned along this path of what one can accomplish in our own self-discovery. And as a writing and life coach, I work with men and women to break through the BS of their lives to find their own voice and leaping into a life they love. It is my belief that when we share our stories of how we overcame what we have been through, it will serve as someone else's survival guide. So if you're ready to get the book out of your head and onto the page, I'd love to hear from you. Go to www.jocelynbellows.com and join me every Tuesday at noon Eastern and Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern.
I'm Fidel Nshombo. I was born in a city called the Bukavu in the Congo. We were a loving family, and then, boom, everything that I had disappeared in a single day. People think that when you are a refugee and they resettle you to America and all your problems are done. They don't understand that that's the beginning of everything. I was not born a refugee. I was made one.
It's time we welcome refugee families with open arms. Learn more at embracerefugees.org, brought to you by the Ad Council.
Oh, welcome back, everyone. Thanks for joining us here on the Flow of Enlightenment with G.P. Walsh and myself, Lisa Berry. We invite you every show to call in and ask your questions, and the number is 202-507-7057. We love these questions, and as we continue with the mysteries, the feminine mysteries and the goddess and all this wonderful stuff, I wanted to get a little, yeah, we always go deep, but this is going deep here. What I was wondering, GP, my big question is a whole bunch of questions. The moon, Luna, very feminine, represents the subconscious. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about how the planet, I think about it being as Mother Nature. So then I feel like, okay, wait, is the moon and the planet both very feminine aspects, quality? So I should ask that first. Am I in the correct there?
Well, yeah. I mean, the Earth is the source and the nourisher of life. Yes, it's clearly the feminine dimension. And the moon has its runs through its phases. It's been associated with the goddesses, and of course the feminine cycle is attached directly to it, so you can't separate the two.
Right.
So of course it reflects that, and it looks like that, and it also becomes the one of the symbols of death and resurrection, because it waxes and wanes, it disappears and then comes and is reborn every month, whereas the sun dies and is reborn every year.
Oh,
that's the solstice says that, and that's where the death and resurrection things came from. Okay. That's where it was all celebration. It's no accident that there are so many holidays for so many sages, including Christ's birthday, that happen right around winter solstice, which is the point at which the sun dies, and they're celebrating now the rebirth of the sun, the resurrection of the sun. And there's so many rituals, feminine rituals around the moon, because it dies and is resurrected every month. And then the 13 moons, which are the part of are deeply ingrained in the Native American culture.
Oh, they do. Okay, I'm not.
Which is a
I'm
matriarchal
not
culture.
Ah,
They're
okay.
not
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, with that, so where I was feeling the pull to take the conversation is to, and I don't mean it to be so harsh or sounding, but we just went to life and death, so this is okay. But when we're disrupting the planet and we are affecting, I don't know if we're affecting the moon, but we're affecting the planet for sure with our culture, and what role that plays when we're starting to interfere with not allowing the feminine aspects, not allowing Mother Nature, not allowing the goddess to be honored, and we're suppressing it and rejecting it and harming it. Where does that
That's the masculine gone insane.
Yeah, and did we allow it? Does the feminine aspect have any responsibility on that? Did we abandon and not, provide enough feminine love and nurturing?
Oh, well, the feminine responsibility, the responsibility of women is don't become men.
Okay.
No, and it happens. You know, somebody like a Margaret Thatcher or a Hillary Clinton, they've become men. They play in men's games. They're playing by men's rules. And they're playing with the same level of insanity and ruthlessness. It's harsh. It's just absolutely.
They're lacking the heart. They're lacking the heart.
Yeah. I mean, as Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton was just horrific in terms of her warmongering. So that's the masculine energy, right? That's the hyper masculine. That's the masculine has completely lost touch. The earth has become a commodity to be exploited, not the mother to be honored. And they've done the same thing with women. Women have been reduced to a commodity. You know, sex kittens and supermodels. I mean, that's it. That's what happens.
Yeah.
It becomes
arm candy
and objectified. Yeah, arm candy. It's the true value of women has been completely decimated. But that's because nature has been decimated, and women are far more associated with nature than men are. So the way you see women being treated, that's the way the earth is being. Everything is a commodity. Everything is a commodity. Nothing has any value. Now, a woman doesn't look at her baby as a commodity.
No.
They don't look at each other as commodities. There's still a connection to relationship that men in our modern world have lost. And it's not only tragic, it's incredibly dangerous.
Yes, I can see that. And, you know, that's where that became really powerful to me as I was kind of walking myself through all these. And yes, because the feminine will really relate to nature, and decimated is such a powerful word there as we are feeling empathically the pain of the world, but also in women ourselves. But then is there a time, like right now even, where we become hypersensitive to any form of not abuse, but even, you know, just not being protected? That's where I wanted to take that is how is the world, the planet, and the feminine responding by not the lack of protection? It makes me feel like a raw, you know, nerve, like a tooth that's like, ooh, sensitive and has the nerve exposed without its enamel. You know?
Right. And, you know, when I say, you know, the role of men as protector, I'm not saying women are weak.
Right. Yes.
I mean, but if you look at it again deeply historically, you know, the women are physically weaker for a reason, because men had the job of, you know, of
we have to give men something.
yeah, upper body strength and peeing out of fire. Other than that, you know, okay. So we got, you know, okay, you got those two. We gave them those two, right? But of course, the woman, especially when she is pregnant, and for years, really afterwards, with the carrying of the child, it gets to the point where it has some degree of functioning on its own. She's extremely vulnerable, and she's life. Yes. Life is vulnerable. If anything happens, if something happens to a man, he can be reproduced. He can have many kids. The women is not. They're the commodity that is absolutely precious from the point of view of life. And therefore, men must protect that. And in fact, it's very natural for men to want to protect their women. They die for them without a second thought. Right? Now, that's not because we think about it. If we do, we go, what?
Scratch.
But we don't think about it. It just happens. Happy to just, you know, jump in between your woman and any danger. You don't even think about it. It's instinctive. Because from the point of view of nature, you're more important.
Yes.
But we've turned that completely around. The men have become more important, and women are the commodity. And so, geez, our culture is fucked up. There's no nice way to put it. We have completely turned everything on its head. We've created an imaginary world that doesn't exist. We are so much in our heads now that we cannot see the impact of what we're doing. You know, we're driving the planet to extinction, and we're celebrating the profits. This is insane. Yeah. And there's no other way I can put it. We have gone insane. Our entire culture is nuts. Whoop shooby.
when you said that, exactly what my brain went there, because I love that you had said from a point of life as opposed to a point of view, which is very much in your head, and driving the planet to extinction and celebrate its profits. What I'm thinking about, of course, to go right into it, is how we've abused literally the feminine animal to serve as a surrogate for babies. We can sell them, use them, eat them, do all these things there. And they go, well, I myself, bought a cow share because I could have the raw milk, and it was only for 4 years. And I thought that was only because it was a term that, you're investing in, but it's really because, they're only milking the cows for that length of time, and then something else happens to them. And I wasn't really thinking about that, why? Right. Their life is no longer valued. And so we're making humans this way, and we've gone, and our planet. And so that's
we've made
why
humans this way forever.
Yes, slavery.
Our modern capitalism is only an extension of the master-slave relationship of slavery, which is only an extension of the lord and serf of the age of the aristocracy. There's no difference. Everything is reduced. Slaves are a commodity to be bought and sold, and the African Americans, of course, are the ones who have suffered most of it. But they did the same thing to Native Americans. They've done it to many different people. It was always a function of the prisoner of war. They became a slave.
All right, GP, who did this first? We gotta. Who fucked up first?
Nobody did it better and with more ruthlessness than we did with the African Americans, simply because of the marked physical difference. It was just easy to justify, the sense of being superior. And the culture justified it, and the culture of the religion justified it. So Christianity, they'd be whipping the slaves quoting scripture. Just like, now we're going over and bombing villages in Syria, quoting scripture, right? The same kind of thing. The culture always commandeers or appropriates the language of religion and spirituality to justify its inhuman desires. But it is these desires are just completely out of phase with nature, and that's what greed is.
Out of phase, yeah.
Greed is completely detached from any real reference point. So it makes up its own reference point, and guess what that is? It's the human ego.
Yes.
What the heck?
Oh, you're ringing. When you said about superior, that's what we're judging this on. And my thoughts went to question is with the feminine aspect. Does the feminine aspect not? We don't have superior. Like we don't go, oh, I'm superior, you're superior. But because we have like the elder, we respect our elders, so that we don't have like that word superior.
Not in the same way that men do. For men, it has a lot of power behind it, and you seek to become superior.
Power, right? Yes, power versus wisdom, or
yes, power
love.
Versus wisdom. Yes, or love, or just kind of a natural hierarchy. To respect your elders, which in cultures forever that was the case, right? But that has become less and less. In our culture, you just you pack them away somewhere. You don't want to see them.
Exactly. It's not my problem anymore.
They don't spend money. That's why.
Oh, yes. Oh, you nailed that. That was, yes.
They don't. That's it. They want to put.
They want to spend time with their grandkids, and they're not.
Yeah. And our culture puts the emphasis on where the money is, and that's going to be youngsters who don't know what they're doing yet, or they're just starting their lives out, and that sort of thing. And so the rest can be put aside. This is a deeply ingrained sickness that has affected absolutely everything, and it is because of the commodification of the feminine, and the feminine is the nature of life itself.
When you said about I remember it. Contribution to society. I grew up with my parents saying, always be sure you are contributing to society. But the problem with that, not there's a problem, what our culture has been teaching us, though, is how to contribute in not a feminine aspect way. It's been, as you said, the masculine. So question around this about the self-inquiry with this. where does one start even? Because right now I'm thinking, there's no saving this planet. We've screwed it up. The extinction's on its way. And
there might not be.
Eek.
Yeah, eek.
Yeah.
There might not be.
GP, you didn't leave me much room to go with that one other than eek.
It's too soon to give up.
Right. Yes. Okay. Let's start there.
Yeah.
If the whole world immediately turned on a dime, in the next 30 days, if we literally could get the entire planet to turn in 30 days to the feminine, loving, nurturing, I love that, from a point of life, what are some things that we could see happening? Like, would we just
everything would be corrected in a year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, all of this would disappear in a year. We have the technology, we have the know-how, but all of it is now in the hands of greed. If it puts in the hands of love, this is turned around on a dime.
And when we're saying that, is that we need to stop looking outward and blaming others, and we have to be aware of what's going on, obviously.
Yes, and the cause of it. I keep emphasizing the greed. Greed is an infectious state of mind. It's one of the 3 poisons, according to Buddha: ignorance, delusion, and greed. And it's poisoning everything. And it has been institutionalized. Capitalism is institutionalized greed. Our entire political and economic system is based on greed, profit above all. And it now controls every institution on the planet. Now, greed is not a person. It's not somebody. It's a state of mind. And if it's taken on as yourself, then you will begin acted out. And the only thing that can undo that is an inquiry into it. Otherwise, you'll just unconsciously act that out. You will be greed, right? You'll not see it as a quality in which you have a choice. You will simply be that. And everything will be justified in those terms, and everything you do will feel like it's the right thing because it meets this particular criteria when it's culturally sanctioned and institutionalized, which it is at this point. So if we see it as a state of mind and not as a person, then we can actually deal with it at the level at which it can be met. Because if it's just a person, then what do? Well, okay, you wipe out these people, and then there's more people because it's not a person.
Right, exactly. Well, what we'll do is, if GP, if you would, we'll go to commercial break. But when we come back, I am going to be asking, how do we do a self-inquiry around greed and get to its root? So please join us when we get back. And we did have a question that just came through here on Messenger, so I will ask that as well. So join us again on the Flow of Enlightenment with GP Walsh and Lisa Berry.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose: to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On. My passion is sifting through information, research and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers and researchers, pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
Coping 19, brought to you by CDC and the Ad Council.
If you're feeling increasingly lonely right now, you're not alone. It's totally normal.
Even though we may not be able to get together in person, connecting virtually with friends and family still gives you a chance to interact with people and may help raise your spirits. Join a virtual book club, set up group text chats, or online video coffee breaks with coworkers.
Find more self-care and coping tips at coping-19.org.
Oh, that's what I love about the feminine aspects. It's not just about coping. You are coming together. I had to piggyback on that commercial. So yes, yeah. You know what, guys, I just got to share with you that we were just chatting as much as we could there on the commercial break that yes, this conversation is going differently than most do when it comes to Women's International Day. You know, I've show up for those and do that, but I knew that I'm feeling like the entire world is like, well, we have to understand what it is first and know how it's being harmed or rejected. And even myself, GP, is something I, often go, I wouldn't use that word like, oh, yeah, I'm so proud to be a woman. It's not like that because it's a different kind of feeling for me. I can honestly say, it's funny you mentioned about, we don't look at our children like commodities, and I have my baby cats, and I feel very mothering and nurturing, and I honor that mothering aspect of me that comes out with them. And I mentioned about how, we're talking about greed and how this is really harming, really harming, abusing the life that we have. And you said, well, greed isn't that it belongs to the masculine either. It's neither feminine or masculine. So can you just expand on that? It's a distortion
of the masculine. It has nothing to do with the masculine.
It's a distortion.
Yeah, the masculine is the protector, not the exploiter.
Right. Oh, I love that. Yes.
And the masculine has become the exploiter. It has completely lost touch with its real role. It lost in greed, which is a form of insanity. And what happens? Yeah, it becomes the devourer.
Yes.
And the devourer is one of the characters actually in the Book of Revelation in the Bible. I mean, it's a mythological character, the one who just eats for no reason. It eats because it can't be ever satisfied. It just exploits.
Yes. Causing harm and having pleasure in the other's lack of or suffering or not being a part of.
Yeah, the idea that I could gain at somebody else's expense, right? And now it's to the point of I can gain the entire world, and at the expense of everybody and everything in it, which is, of course, the parasitic state of mind. The parasite kills the host and dies with it. But that's the insanity of greed. It can't see that.
Now, GP, I noticed that there's a line. There's a line that we've all people, human, have crossed where it's I only want more right now because I don't want to not have. So it's more a protection. I would really like some food so that I want to make sure I have food so that I can live. So that sounds more like a protection, and then you go I don't want to let my neighbor have it because then I won't have enough. Now we're getting a little on that other side of the line, but now it's watch me eat this in front of you while you starve to death. Now we're whoa, okay. So how and how can we do any self-inquiry work or offering love? How can we remove ourselves from that other side?
Well, Buddha really brought out the deeper meaning of greed when he said when he was saying that the three poisons are ignorance, delusion, and greed. What he was talking about in greed was not the kind of just the Wall Street broker or the hedge fund manager, the CEO, right, that destroys, that kind of just unbridled avarice. Mm-hmm. That is in its most extreme form. Greed starts in the notion that I can get something like happiness or contentment from some external object.
Oh.
And that lives in all of us. Every time I reach for satisfaction in something outside of myself, I'm in greed. And you can see how that can just grow and grow and grow because it's insatiable. And so they just want more and more and more. And basically, I want it all. And that's just greed that has been so blown out of proportion. It becomes the great red dragon of the revelation, basically, devouring the child, just waiting for the child to be born so it can devour it, which is a very powerful, powerful image for greed. And it happens. It starts out very, very subtle. I'm going to keep this for myself, right? When, because I might not have any tomorrow, rather than just handing it out, who's here, whoever, whatever is needed right now, this is what we have.
Is there a line
of
going too far,
it's though? It's what we have. And if we looked at the planet like that, it's not like what I have, it's what we have. This is what we have.
Right. Well, this is going to be a big one. I'm speaking for so many people here. What if they operate from there, like that beautiful place that you're saying? This is what we have, and we can all make this work. And then there is one bad seed in the bunch that is greed and allows greed to take over. How does that feminine community side be able to say, no, now you can't anymore because you've stepped out of this beautiful, cooperation circle, or they just to allow how to not be walked over and stepped over, and taken from and exploited.
Yeah, well, to the Native Americans, greed was regarded as an illness.
As an illness.
If somebody was trying to get more, they were regarded as sick, and they needed help.
Wow. You sicko! How can you want more?
Regarded with compassion because they'd obviously gone crazy.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Right. It never developed to the point where it was like threatening the entire tribe, because the roots never got in that deep. But now they have. So now we're in a different position, right?
Yes.
Because everybody's subject to this greed. The entire Western world is pursuing wealth at any cost. I mean, look at all the ads for the law of attraction and stuff. What do they talk about? World peace, ending world hunger? No, they talk about you getting what you want. It's all about having the life of your dreams. It's all about you. It's the same thing over and over again. So it has so infected us that the only way out is self-inquiry. The only way out is to scrutinize these things, these cultural ideas that that have been instilled in us right from the beginning.
Yes.
And see them for what they are. The destructive manifestation of greed as it's infected the human soul. That's the only way out. To rid it from ourselves, and we become increasingly powerful and authoritative and articulate in showing it to others, so they can see it in themselves and pull themselves out of it. And then it becomes kind of a grassroots thing. Politics is never going to work. I'm sorry, it's never going to work. Mm-hmm. It's never going to be able to do it, because the entire structure of it is to maintain those at the top who are enjoying the fruits of that greed, and they're not going to give up their position. So we have to basically take away the structure upon which it lies. And that's the expectation in us that somehow we're going to be one of them. That the ideal of life somehow is to attain this a massive amount of stuff. The big bank account, the McMansion, that there's I think it's close to 20 billion square feet of use storage places in the United States.
Of storage?
20 billion square feet of use storage. Those little places where you
yes.
because you have
you
so
store
much
it. I
shit,
see what you're saying. Yes.
And you don't have any place to put it. But instead of just giving it away, you put it somewhere where you never see it.
Yes.
This is a symptom of that. And that's like 200,000 football fields. I mean, we're talking about an unthinkable amount of space where people are just holding on to what?
I am going through making those choices right now as I go through. I'm like, really? Do I really need to know that I made this cute trace my hand, make a turkey out of it in grade 2? Like it's just, but he's cute. So maybe I'll want him. But You actually it's perfect for this question for me to weave this in, because you're mentioning about how we are seeing things for what we need to see things for what they are, but we do have an expectation of things. And so a question came in, and I am weaving this in, I think, beautifully, but
if I do say so myself.
If I do say so myself, a question came in is one's vision of how they perceive others, is that a reflection of how we want to see them, or how they are truly being, or I'm adding to the question, or who we are, and we're reflecting this. So I'm weaving this one, so this is important because, as you just said, if we hold an expectation, are we really seeing things for who they are, or is it a reflection of just what we want, or what's in us?
So yeah. I mean, you don't even need a question mark on that. Just flip the words around. If I have an expectation, I will see everything in terms of those expectations, and I will not see them for what they are. Period.
Oh.
My expectation will turn what I'm seeing into something that serves my expectation. I've just made it into a commodity, and I'm no longer present with it anymore. I'm seeing it through the eyes of my own desire, and therefore I do not see it. It becomes an object, a commodity, a thing to be used.
Wow.
This moment is a stepping stone to getting to there, therefore I cannot see this moment. I mean, it's that powerful.
Wow.
Your expectations of what should be will determine your relationship to everything. And if it's supposed to be this way, nothing will be satisfactory.
So whether it's good or bad, it doesn't matter. If you have an expectation, it's going to be amazing. You could look at the worst person in the world and see God. And if you see the devil, then you'll see the devil.
If you have no expectation, you'll only see God. Because that's all there actually is. Our expectations distort our views. They don't let us see what is here. And then you see the face of God. And it's everywhere.
And do we melt expectation by doing self-inquiry work?
Installed in you. If you don't question it, you're just going to assume that this is what it's supposed to be. We're all raised with cultural expectations. This is the way my life was supposed to go. By the time I was this age, I should be having this, this, and this. I'm a 40-year-old woman. I should have 2 kids, and we should make a couple $100,000 a year, and blah 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 blah. Those are all cultural expectations. They're all bullshit. They're all made up. None of them are for real. And they define life in terms of the possessions, and they define everything in terms of whether or not you're going to get those possessions or not. So every relationship becomes a business deal. You don't have relationships anymore. You don't have intimacy. Even the relationships in what we would normally regard as intimate relationships between a couple become an expectation of what the other one is supposed to give to them.
Yes.
The woman can become eye candy. The man becomes a resource. What happened to love? Love has nothing to do with this. This is all transactional.
Yes. As I sat with my girlfriend going through a separation agreement yesterday, very painful. And you're right, because you go back, and then how the woman is looking at it is quite different than the man, and vice versa, whichever aspects are being reflected at that time.
Yes. Inquiry is the only way.
And how would they start? Because I know we only have 2 more minutes, but how would one start? They're listening, they're tuning in, they're like, okay, the flow of enlightenment. Yes, GP says self-inquiry is the only way. And you're like, how the heck? Well, first of all, you need to join the Facebook group, and I will just slide that in here right now, everybody. So please, actually, go to gpwalsh.com is where you want to do, and go sign up for the light letter and get on the list, and also join the group so you can ask these questions, because you do go live as well. But if they were to start, what would be that question, whether they're inquiring about greed or just how do I get through this? How do I honor the feminine goddess, everything?
The way you start is there's got to be an opening of the heart that takes place, where suddenly you realize that you spent your life pursuing things, and it hasn't worked. It's been unsatisfying. And the only thing the world tells you, and everybody tells you, is, well, you just have to keep striving. You're not asking for the right thing. You're not asking the right way. You've got to raise your vibration one thing after another to try to get something out there. And self-inquiry says, it's not out there. Turn around. Go back the way you came. Look within.
I love that.
Look within, not so that you get something out there, so that you discover what's already here that you're not seeing. So it's not a commodity anymore. This moment isn't a stepping stone to the next. This is the gift. And the only way to discover that is the inquiry is seeing through the illusion and delusions of our own thinking. Seeing ourselves, the greed in ourselves, where I have ignorantly reached out to something, thinking that thing was going to bring me satisfaction. And that opens up the door to seeing this moment as precious, this moment as the gift of the goddess, this moment as the birth, not something that happened a while ago and now, this thing's kind of grinding on. But this moment is coming directly from the womb of the goddess. That this is your life. This is it. It's not there. It's not in the past. It's not in the future. It's not in some expectations. This is it. As Christ put it, he said, the kingdom of God is spread upon the earth, but the people do not see it.
And that was absolutely beautiful. So everybody, go back the way you came. The moment is the gift of the goddess. Thank you, G.P. Walsh, so much for sharing this time with us.